Hi, I'm Ems, aka on Dark and Wings. In this video, I'll be reviewing and demonstrating the Green Stuff World Sci-fi molds. Please do like, comment, and subscribe. So this does come with 3 silicone molds. I'm not affiliated with Green Stuff World in any way. I just wanted to do a review. This retails for around about £25 here in the UK. This does come with a handy leaflet, and it breaks down what each part of the mold is, along with a label of each part of it, which is super handy if you want to know what you're making. On the other side of the leaflet, it gives you some tips on what you can actually make with the structures, with the labels of each part. So you can make full-on buildings with these, you can make some stairs, you can even make some structures. So it's very versatile in terms of what you can make with it, from big tabletop games to skirmish type games like Kill Team and Necromunda. The recommended product to use with these molds is acrylic resin from Green Stuff World. This is about 350 grams. You can get a 700 grams version. This is non-toxic, and this retails for around about £5 here in the UK. The generic brand name for this stuff is called Eco Resin Plaster, and there's different brands out there, but to be honest, it's not that much cheaper than the Green Stuff World version. It's around about £20 per kilogram. This is probably one of the few times where I will say that the boutique hobby brand isn't that bad, reasonably priced. But as the video goes on, I will talk about alternatives which are cheaper. Here I have a disposable cup, and I'm spooning in 3 spoonfuls of that Green Stuff World acrylic resin powder. And then I'm going to add about 1.5 tablespoons of water. I know it says 1 tablespoon, but to be honest, a lot of this is down to personal preference and playing around with these type of products to see what works best for you. I have this squeezy bottle I use for applying water, and this is great for using on wet palettes as well. And I'm just going to mix this up, and I'm going to pour it into the molds. This can get a little bit messy, so just be aware of that on your desk. You might want to put some newspaper down, or just something in case it pours out everywhere. And once you've poured it into the mould, you want to smooth it out across it. I know I did kind of waste quite a bit here, but if you want to be kind of precise with it and be careful where you're pouring it so you don't waste it. This mixture takes about half an hour to an hour to cure. You might want to take them out and then leave them for a bit longer, just so they cure a bit longer before you start to paint and prime with the top of them. But as you can see here, there's some lovely details on them. It's really sharp and crisp. There's not like any flaws in them really at all. It's very smooth. There's quite a lot of variation within this kit as well, which is very cool. You can make a lot of different bits and pieces with it. You can make some terrain, you can make some backdrops, you can make some basing materials. And it's quite tough as well. I put a little bit of pressure on it with my thumbs and it didn't break. So these are quite solid, even though they're made out of acrylic resin. And you can glue them together with super glue afterwards to make some structures. I wanted to try a cheaper alternative to the Eco powder and the Green Stuff World acrylic resin, as it's called Scholar powder. This stuff is similar to what you would call plaster of Paris. It's a lot cheaper and easier to get. It's around about £5 per kilogram. You have to mix about 3 spoonfuls to 2 spoonfuls of water with this, but I added probably about 3 to 4 spoonfuls of water. This stuff is a lot thicker than the acrylic resin stuff, as you can see here, and you have to really mix it up a bit more. You have to really work into it a bit more than the acrylic resin. It's very thick and gloopy, but we'll see how we get on with it. This powder takes about 40 minutes to cure, but I do have to say the details on it are quite nice. They're on par with the acrylic resin ones. Although I do have to say it does feel a little bit more brittle and not as solid as the acrylic resin. I did accidentally break apart some of the Scholarcast versions of the molds. This is because it is a bit more brittle. So if you see on the mold how they have these in between parts, these all kind of fuse together with the Scholarcast powder. So when I was trying to remove them, so you see these little parts here in between. With the acrylic resin, those are easiest to get out, but with the Scholarcast powder, it tends to kind of fuse together a lot more. So with this mould, it has some acrylic resin on it, and this is cured, and this was a lot easier to take apart. So it's not as, brittle, and it doesn't fuse together the same as the Scorecast powder. So I would recommend, if you're going to be using the Scorecast powder, to be a little bit more conscious of where you're going to be pouring it into the moulds so they don't fuse together. That isn't to say the Scorecast plaster of Paris type powder isn't worth using if you're on a budget, because the detail's still there. Granted, you might get a few little bit more flaws with it, but it's still great if you're going to be working on a budget. And to be honest, I'll probably crush these up, and I could make them into some basing materials if I need to. But it's worth using, like I said, if you're just going to do this on the cheap. Apparently you can use this with water effects, the UV resin type stuff, and jewellery crafting resin. Obviously not the stuff you use with 3D printing. I personally haven't used this yet, so if you are going to do this, so you don't completely destroy the moulds if it doesn't work, just use it on a very small part to see how it works. But if you do happen to use it with other materials or other powders, do let me know. It'd be great for feedback and understanding what materials work with these. What I've done with the first batch of my moulds is to create a photography backdrop, I'm taking pictures of miniatures or squads. And also, if you look at the top here, I have these cables. I created this using the Green Stuff World XL roller. If you would like me to do a separate video talking about this, let me know in the comments. I also added some computer panels, and this is from another Green Stuff World mould. This is a really handy kit, and I really like using this. I've used it a lot. And there are quite a lot of moulds within this range you can use in conjunction with the Sci-fi moulds like the industrial pipe. I won't be painting this backdrop up in this video, but I just wanted to demonstrate that paint goes over this quite easily, so you can paint a primer, spray primers, or your airbrushes over the top of this, and paint easily goes over the top of it. I do have to say this kit is worth it. It's very versatile, and you can always use that Scholar powder if you want to use it on a budget. As always, thank you for watching. Remember to enjoy your hobbies for yourself, respect that people enjoy them in their own ways. And if you want to support me, I'm on Patreon, and I have a bunch of social media stuff in the links below.